Okay, welcome back to another quarterfinals game of GP Essen. And yeah, Augur's on the play because they managed to 4-0 the Swiss portion.
Yeah, definitely a very large advantage for Prowess.
Yeah. Well, actually, do either sides run Cosmic Sinkhole? I don't think they do, right?
They don't, but I have to assume this matchup is a immediate race.
I mean, yeah. Augur had to mulligan their first hand, and so did Lyco Drake, I guess. So it seems like
But
they have decent hands.
yeah, so I think kind of a key example of the play being important here is that both players have Crossing the Fog in their opening hand,
Right,
and that is a card that you really want to be on the play with.
right. Well, I mean, Chattering Parrot can block.
That's true, but in this case, against Augur's 1/2s, it is chumping,
Right.
which is much less attractive.
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world to get 2 loots for 1 mana.
Yeah, but at the same time, Espithel would be really unessentialized to block with the pair, considering they have their own crossing fog.
So
As
Augur,
well as
right. So Augur opens up with Forganasan's Flame Blocker, which I feel is weird because they probably should open up with Night Academic so they can start scrying. But maybe because maybe they fetched Mountain for mana reasons.
Yeah, I think the manners works out being really weird here because you want to be playing Night Academic plus crossing fog, but you can't do that with a mountain.
Right, so that's why they did that. Okay, that makes sense.
Well,
Wait, but they still
just
can't do that, right?
yeah, they should have fetched the island so they could Night Academic turn 1 and then crossing fog plus Flame Wicker turn 2.
Right.
Strong Arm does kind of get them out of it if Espithel decides to block, since, again, with this crossing fog, they're kind of incentivized to. Maybe a Scorch is flipped here.
Yeah. Also, Augur fetched Frostfire Geysers, which might be a reason they opened with Mountain, but does Preserving Life matter this much in this matchup? Or, I guess, fetching dual lands? Well, I guess they need double red for if they want to Fire Burst plus Strong Arm in a turn.
I think it's more so for the mana. I still don't know how I feel about like maybe just having Mountain Island, which would let them play Academic turn 1 and then Flame Waker Crossing Fog turn 2. Maybe that the mana is just really bad, so they decide to go for this mana line instead.
Right. The good news for wait, it's not Lyco Drake, it's Espithel. So, I'm sorry, Espithel. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so Espithel just passes. I guess they have Arichi up, so I guess Arichi lets them loot with Parrot. But you didn't want to block with Arichi because that thing's enabling Title Spite.
Yeah, so I think here we're going to see a bit of a blowout with Strong Arm, since the way that Espithel has set this up is that it's pretty obvious the Chatting Parrot is going to block and then Orichi is going to flicker it.
Yeah.
But Strong Arm kind of massively hinders that plan.
Well,
since it goes through the non-blocker that the block that the vanishing Chattering Parrot is.
it's not the worst thing in the world because at least Chattering Parrot doesn't die from that. It's just that Espithel loses a bunch of life.
Yeah, we'll just basically just turns it into a Strong Arm into a Zero Mana deal 4 to face. Well, better than Zero Mana because Augur can decide to keep the treasure if they want.
Yeah.
Want to.
So, I mean, Espithel gets loot twice, so it's very likely that they draw into a land, which allows them to Stormcaller and then Title Spite. And yeah, there's a land. I guess Far Wanderings is probably going on the bottom.
I'd imagine so. I can't imagine you want to bottom crossing the fog here. We'll see if Augur decides to Strong Arm. 4 damage seems pretty good. 5 when you count the prowess from the Flame Waker.
Yeah, and then they can follow up with the Fiery Burst if they really want to, just to push through even more damage.
Yeah, maybe. Just get under Title Spite. They could also just decide to play like Night Academic plus Rapture counters.
Right.
Though actually, if they Strong Arm, they get to do that anyways because they get Mountain plus they get both the Jennies.
Yeah. So yeah, Espithel bottoms, Far Wanderings, Guardian. And I'm just thinking about whether to Strong Arm or not.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty straightforward thing to do. It does kind of run them a bit out of spells, since they'll only have this. Oh, they go for the Fire Burst. I have to imagine this is also going to be a Strong Arm.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh.
Huh.
That's really weird.
Maybe they want to play Enraptured Countess plus Night Academic this turn, and then save Strong Arm for next turn when they have more creatures in play.
I guess, but why wouldn't you say this Fire Burst instead of the Strong Arm?
Maybe Augur thinks that they need to use Strong Arm in order to prevent a creature from dying or something.
I mean,
but now Espithel gets on top with Title Spite.
Yeah, and also just Title Spite blows out Strong Arm. Seems really bad.
Yeah.
And also Fire Burst is giving Espithel a draw, whereas if you played it on the next turn, you might just be able to pay the additional cost.
Right.
I guess it sets up. Oh, what it sets up is Enraptured Countess tail, I think, is what's happening here.
I guess, but they still could have strong armed instead of fire burst, right? I guess they want to tail the fire burst.
I guess, but again, you could also just do both, and then Espithel would be at 8 here.
Yeah.
And then Enraptured Countess on the fire burst would set them 5, and then they have 4 3-power threats, which isn't lethal through Tidal Spite, but seems incredibly winning.
Right. Well, either ways, Espithel has forgotten their Charm Parrot, or forgotten their Orichi return trigger, so we're going to have to wait for a judge call.
I think this game probably just comes down to how big of a blow this Tidal Spite is.
They can Tidal Spite for 3, assuming Orichi doesn't die.
Yeah, they put Strong Collar plus Island. But if it also fizzles a Strong Arm, that seems like a pretty major deal. So, like, depending on how much Augur wants to play around Strong Arm, they could do things like Enraptured Countess tail on the Fire Burst, and then not cast it, and then attack.
What does it actually do?
Or something. Well, if they draw land, it's pretty easy to play around Tidal Spite. But the thing is that on 3 lands, you need to cast Strong Arm before you cast the Fire Burst to have the mana.
Right.
So you need treasure.
Which means that, you want to Strong Arm after your opponent casts Tidal Spite.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
This Countess is also a bit scary. So, like, Strong Arm the Countess, but kind of forces a Tidal Spite on hitting the Countess, which gives you another opportunity to use the tail.
Right.
There's also other potential lines, like not even using the Countess tail and just like using Flame Waker activate ability, playing it a bit slower.
Right.
Espithel also has a lot of stuff that could do. I mean, 3 lands, 5 spells. Any thoughts?
So, I mean, if I was in Espithel's shoes, I would just play Storm Color Sentinel, on up Tidal Spite, and then attack Shining Power pass, and then see what my opponent does next turn.
Any thoughts to other lines, like maybe holding up Orichi?
You already have an Orichi.
Yeah, but assuming the Orichi is going to jump, get another couple triggers off Shattering Parrot, you get 1 less Tidal Spite, but arguably Tidal Spite doesn't matter that much, because Augur has plenty of mana, very few cards.
I guess, but Tidal Spite blanks a bunch of damage.
Yeah, but so does jumping with the Orichi.
Right, I guess.
Unless I don't think you really want to be jumping with the Orichi if you're not playing replacement. It also saves the Chatting Pit, so that saves damage that you get from playing the Stormcaller.
Right, so in that case, you play Crossing the Fog and swing with Chatting Parrot or something?
I was thinking just like Orichi plus Tidal Spite.
Can you hold up Orichi plus Tidal Spite?
Yeah, and so then you get block, Tidal Spite, bounce other 2, Orichi bounces the Chatting Pit, so you're left with the same board state. But get a bit more mana to work with next turn.
I guess. How hard does that line lose to Strong Arm? I guess it doesn't lose that hard to Strong Arm, especially if you're playing Strong Arms before you Tidal Spite.
Yeah, it really depends on how Augur plays with his Strong Arm. Because obviously, if it goes on an unblocked creature, then they get pretty blown out with Tidal Spite. But you could also just it really depends on how the players decide to play it. Strong on a blocked creature, strong on unblocked makes a big difference. There's also like, do you want to block the Countess to begin with? Because you don't want Strong Arm to go on Countess, because you would probably want Tidal Spite something. So another thing you could do is like Crossing the Fog.
Yeah, like I mentioned.
Crossing the Fog, attack with Chattering Pit, hope to hit like a 1-drop, like a Panya would be great. Then you play Island, Panya, and then Tidal Spite for 3.
And then you don't even have to chump, right, at that point?
Yeah, well, it'll only be 1 unblocked thing. You could also open up some interesting lines with like Tidal Spiting your own guys, potentially.
I feel like you have enough resources to not have to Tidal Spite your own guys. You can just deploy new stuff instead of having to waste Tidal Spites on bouncing your guys to save them.
Yeah, that's fair. Though here, Espithel doesn't actually have that many creatures to block with, since a double Orichi is kind of awkward. Far-Wandering Guardian is not really a good card here, only being a 1/1 for 2.
Yeah.
So saving this Chattering Pit seems kind of valuable, just to have something to play around with, like with the second Orichi.
Yeah, just keep looting off the Chattering Parrot. Eventually it'll draw into something good.
So maybe you let a few damage through with the Tidal Spite, and then instead use one of the targets on Chattering Pit to save it after you block with it.
Yeah. Okay, seems like the judge has finally arrived, and we're gonna see what's gonna happen.
There's also just like the general question of how does Espithel actually kill Augur? Because none of these lines we've discussed actually do that very well.
Good point. Wait, actually, yeah, good point. Can Espithel actually run Augur out of resources, or is that basically just impossible?
It seems kind of hard because this Enraptured Countess is kind of really messing up Spithel's day.
Yeah.
The Knight Academic in play and the one that will probably get drawn off the journey also gives Augur much better draws.
Okay.
And cards like any spell, Espithel just hates seeing here. Or a non-creature at least.
So let me look at Espithel's deck. They need to do something like a Phantasmal Alpania Power Scatter.
Yeah, so maybe just in terms of like winning the game, going for the Crossing Fog, attack with Chatting Pit line seems kind of good. Find a Panio and Owl to buff up your Title Spite, and then that gives you a lot more pressure.
Yeah.
Maybe try to play around a Panio win, since a Panio time will probably wins. It is a ton of damage.
Well, I mean, in this game, Augur has fetched very carefully, so they haven't actually taken damage from their land.
Yeah, but Panio is just a really nasty card.
Yeah.
Because even just with Panio alone, it's 6 damage, plus whatever buffs Fliers are getting. Because
Right.
presumably by the time you're Panio telling it the Stormcall Sentinel down, then suddenly Panio is dealing 8 instead of 6. And then, you get the Stormcall next turn, you hit 11, and then, you only need 7 more damage.
Right.
Which is a lot, but seems kind of approachable if you're chipping away this Chatting Pit.
Also, Tau is somewhere in Espithel's deck, and if they draw it, then that's going to put a huge damper in Augur's plans.
Well, Augur doesn't have any spells left.
Enraptured Countess is a spell.
Oh, that is true. Though, unfortunately, Tal will only hit one of Blade's Memory and Fire Burst.
You just name sorcery, and then they... Actually, no, you have to name instant, I think, because they have more instants in their deck, right? Or at least the cards that matter are instants. Well, no.
8 instants, 13 sorceries.
I think it's a pretty even split. So yeah, you don't actually have anything good to name.
I think you just named sorcery, considering that this Blades of Memory is on the table.
Okay, seems like the judge card is resolved, and Iron Parrot comes back, and they get to loot off it. Oh, there's Phantasmal Owl.
Yeah, that's a huge drop here.
They can bottom the Far Wandering's Guardian. Oh, the player has Summoning Sickness because...
Yeah, so we get a bit of an odd state with Mist Orichi return trigger coming back on main phase, because it was a mist.
Yeah.
So Espithel does get to see an additional card when drawing off Chatting Pit, but also can't attack with it, which makes this Crossing the Fog a bit awkward.
Well, it doesn't matter. They have Phantasmal Owl and Title Spite.
Yeah, that is true.
And yeah, they bought Far Wandering's Guardian because it's kind of useless right now.
Imagine with this Phantasmal Owl draw, the most natural line is probably just Owl, Title Spite, Crossing the Fog, even if you don't want to attack.
Yeah.
And Phantasmal Owl will make killing with the potential Panio really easy.
Well, I guess that also has to think a bit, because Crossing the Fog without attacking isn't very intuitive, I guess.
But that's true.
But they might just go for a Stormcaller Sentinel anyways, because they figured that since they're not crossing the fog, because they can't attack, they might as well go for it, or try to spend all their mana.
Yeah, well, so does Crossing the Fog, Owl, Title Spite, spend all the mana.
Yeah.
And immediately playing out those 3 1-drops does make your following turns a bit awkward. Because you're left with 2 2-drops and 2 lands. So if you draw another 2-drop, it's really not what you want to see. But at the same time, Crossing the Fog probably finds a land, so it's probably okay.
Yeah.
There's also probably an argument to just holding onto the Owl to kind of save it, almost.
Around removal, because Enraptured Countess can't get back removal. But I think if Augur uses removal on the Owl, you're pretty happy. Wait, they just pass. So they're doing Orichi Title Spite, I guess. Which is the line that you've talked about.
So Heist Headquarters is not the worst draw from Augur. Actually, pretty good draw. Since it gives them some card advantage, also lets them play around Title Spite a bit easier.
Yeah.
Since they can Fire Burst first, and then hold up Strong Arm.
Actually, Espithel can only bounce 2 teams with Title Spite now because Orichi is legendary. You can't play out Orichi and then Title Spite for 3.
Yeah. So the line I was talking about has double blocks, and then Title Spite, and then Orichi the Chattering Pit. So you do end up blocking and bouncing everything.
There is the attacks, so let's see what Espithel does.
Can't imagine it really matters what's being blocked here.
I mean, if you block in a way that forces you to bounce Enraptured Countess, then that's bad.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can actually stop that, because Strong Arm... I guess blocking Enraptured Countess would... like if you blocked Parrot on Countess, and then August Strong Arms it, they do lose the damage.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, and then Augur bottoms a land.
Very useful spry there.
Oh, there. Okay, so it seems like Espithel is just blocking. And I think that's the Title Spite coming out.
Actually, is he voluntarily title spiting the Rapture Countess?
Huh. That's strange.
I mean, I guess Augur doesn't actually have anything to flash back. That's really good. I mean, Crossing Fog is pretty good, actually. And it does still give another cast off this Wade's memory. And even just casting seems important.
Yeah.
Espithel doing all this before Augur does anything is a bit of a oddity, because Augur will have first priority.
Right.
So, as a blocker, they're kind of giving up some advantage.
Yeah. Well, there's a second Phantasmal L.
So we'll see if Augur decides to strong arm here for 5 damage, same as it was last turn.
Well, if they strong arm here, they get to pick up a card off the journey, so maybe that's worth it for them.
Yeah, also was true of last turn.
Right. But last turn, at least they were picking up a card regardless, right?
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So there's still this Fire Burst that's sitting in the graveyard. Do you even want to cast this Fire Burst anymore?
I mean, why not? It's free damage for free.
Draw. I don't know if I'd call giving your opponent a free draw as free.
If the game ends before the opponent gets to use the card that they drew, then it's free.
But it also does use up the mana, so
right.
Augur wouldn't be able to get this Enraptured Countess down.
They have the treasure, they can do that anyways.
Well, then they can't get the Night Academic down.
I think you're happy with just dropping one of these guys, because like you got to use Enraptured Countess twice.
No. The Fire Burst will be exiled, and Strong Arm is a bit easier to play around on Espithel's side. Wait.
Really? How are you going to play around Strong Arm with this board? You're going to die to trample damage.
Just in terms of like Title Spite, I'm thinking.
Yeah, but you already used your Title Spite.
Well, the thing is that they get the Chatting Pit here.
Ooh, Selka Graces.
They have Cross and Fog too. They do get a lot of looks, even though they only have one Title Spite left in deck.
They decide to bottom Social Graces. Would you have bottom something different there?
Well, Social Graces is just bad, considering you know Augur's hand, right?
Right, but it draws you a card. It gives you another luck.
I guess
Title Spite.
I guess that's true. If you identify Title Spite as your only out.
Oof, no Title Spite. I think that's just a loss for Espithel.
Yeah, it looks like it. They will get another draw off the Social Graces they hit off the Crossing Fogs. And while Fair Infiltration does let them look deeper, if they play Fair Infiltration, Title Spite wouldn't be good enough.
Right.
But yeah, it seems pretty over at this point.
So if they played last turn differently with Title Spites and blocking, do you think they could have turned around the game?
So what, in that case, you'd have Enraptured Countess still having the tail used?
Yeah.
I suppose the biggest thing.
So they don't have a second Strong Arm, basically.
Yeah, second Strong Arm or just a spell in general. Then, it seems workable if Augur hits a few lands in a row. Though at the same time, they do have Ice Head Squatters to draw and double Night Academic coming down. Yeah. And there is a point where Espithel just dies to one-powered attackers.
Right.
But at the same time, Double Phantasmal is really nasty. And does do a ton of damage.
Fortunate. Well, Spirit technically does counter Fire Bursts.
It does have unless if Augur really wants to play around Title Spite, this is lethal on board.
Well, it seems like Espithel is representing Title Spite because they have no other options. At least they're playing to their outs. Yeah,
definitely a good play, keep out mana. They do actually have a lot of things for 1 mana instant. Spell Pierce, Title Spite, Fey Infiltration. I guess both of the Fey Infiltrations are exiled at the moment.
It seems like Augur does not fall for Espithel's bluff.
You're realizing that they shouldn't have bounced the Countess.
Yeah.
Countess is just a really powerful card in this Prowess list. Arguably the reason that it all comes together. Since not only do you have the tail as like a flashback kind of thing on a 1-mana Prowess thing that you want to play anyways, but the tail being a spell itself really pumps up these Prowess creatures and lets you cast things even when you're out of spells. So in this case, Augur did hit Consults off the top, but if they hit a land there, then it would have been a much nastier situation. Without the Countess, that is.
Okay, yeah. It's stuck in Seeds. I mean, if Espithel had Title Spite there, then that would have been sort of a blowout.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be really rough. Like when we were examining that turn 3, a lot of the lines were just kind of passing and didn't really actually deal with Augur's threats. Yeah. But with Title Spite, it sort of saved Espithel there. But at the same time, you're bouncing a whole bunch of 1-drops, and you still need to kill your opponent.
Right.
So without like a Panya, or I guess they did hit a bunch of Phantasmal Owls. So maybe if they drew the second Title Spite, they could have gone there.
Right. Well, we should also take a quick look at the sideboards. So from Augur's point of view, they want second ambitions and fork pillars, probably.
No, 100% on Sunken Ambitions, but definitely 4 pills. Maybe Seek of Mysteries is kind of funny because it has flying.
Yeah. And on Espithel's side, they want more power scatters, Pale Spite, Pal, Will of Spirit. Wait, I think they just want everything, mostly. Even Sealed Riftlet might
Yeah,
be good because it's Countess.
yeah, I can see a lot of things here. Like, Augur doesn't actually have any draw, so Anthus is bad. Or Consult, I guess, man. But
Okay.
Title Spite, obviously really powerful. Soul Pierce is kind of interesting here. I'm not even sure if you want Spell Pierce or Soul Pierce or both.
Well, game 2 has already started, and I think Espithel has a really good hand, but they're not going to play turn. Okay, right, they're going to turn 1 Fairy Infiltration. Augur, meanwhile, also has a pretty good hand. They can open up on Night Academic.
Yeah, so Fey Infiltration, digging towards, imagine either Counterspell or a Phantasmal Owl is probably what they want to see here.
I feel like they just want more Tile Spites.
Well, they still need to win the game, so maybe find the Phantasmal Owl before you start Title Spiting.
Also, Tau. If you Tau naming instance, it taxes your own Tile Spite, so you might as well name Sorcery off that thing.
Yeah, that's true. Augur also has quite a few more sorceries than Instance 13 to 8. Pre-board even.
Soul Pierce. Do you keep up Soul Pierce? Or do you play
I
Tau?
imagine so.
It seems like Espithel agrees, and I guess they bottom the other Chattering Parrot, or maybe they bottom Willow Spirit.
Yeah, but I think you really do want to be killing as many of Prowess's creatures as fast as you can, which keep up the Soul Pierce kind of does.
Yeah, so they bomb the Willow Spirit because it doesn't do anything right now.
Also really taxes their mana.
Yeah.
Where 2 lands, they only have 16 lands. So Will Spirit is really expensive at the moment. It takes up the entire turn to play it and use it.
I have to assume Espithel has boarded out their Lofty Denials because it's too expensive in this matchup.
Yeah, I imagine so. Is Augur's entire deck one mana?
Really, it's not, right? Like,
they have some Master of Tranquilities.
yeah.
But besides that, it's all 1 mana.
It dies to Chalice on 1, if that was in the format.
So yeah, definitely having a counter spell that's more expensive than everything your opponent has is kind of suspect, especially when you're on so few lands. Or just for reference, Augur's on 21 lands,
Right.
which is a third more than Espithel's on.
And there we see the Soul Pierce. Wait, Augur played Pupil post-combat, and Espithel did Soul Pierce stat. Huh.
Well, imagine they decided they didn't want to trade the Chattering Parrot.
I guess. But, okay, that makes sense. I guess Augur baited the counterspell with Pupil before going Night Academic.
Yeah, Night Academic being just kind of a better Pupil if it's already in play.
Ooh, Sunrise River. Now you get to keep up Tile Spites. But they bond the Tau. That feels weird.
Yeah, so the problem here is that Espithel does have all the interaction with this. Actually, they don't have anything to buff the Title Spite. Hold on. This is actually just an unsummon right now.
They can Willow Spirit to counter something, I guess. Like, Willow Spirit on Fork Pillar is decent.
So, Espithel has kind of everything set up, but not any way to buff their board. So even though they're kind of ahead on board, I'm not sure how easy it will be for them to leverage it.
Well, maybe Augur plays nice and plays a couple of consults so that Espithel can draw out of this.
Yeah. Even just drawing a single Lord effect would definitely make this much better for Espithel.
Well, there's Fork Pillar and on Willow Spirit. I guess Augur just needs to get Willow Spirit out of the way now.
Yeah, no reason to target something else and potentially let Espithel save the Willow Spirit if they decide to.
I mean, sure, you sacrifice Willow Spirit here, right? Because you're not going to Tile Spite for 1.
Well, you say that, but then Augur has the strong arm and consult, so...
Yeah, but letting Willow Spirit die to Fork Pillar is just going against the whole point playing Willow Spirit.
That's true. So this does open the door for Augur to do a bit of murdering to Espithel's life total.
Just a bit of murdering.
Wait, decides to not play the consult?
I guess they don't want Espithel to draw because they figured that Espithel has bad cards because they haven't done anything useful yet.
Yeah, but at the same time, it does... I mean, it's 2 additional damage, first of all. You're kind of... I guess you're not actually losing the board. So if Espithel does get something good here, if they whiff, you're right. And I guess they have played a land this turn, which does kind of take away the value from some of the value from the consult.
Well, maybe they want to scry with the Night Academics first before they consult.
I guess, but you can't use the cards you scry this turn, really.
Hey, if they're creatures, you can deploy them.
That's true, but you only need to hit 1 creature.
Maybe they're just looking for a Rapid Countess.
And, like, even if you don't hit a creature, just going, like, consult, suddenly Espithel's at 10. Granted, you are at a much scarier position because you give an additional 2 draws, but yeah, this is also especially weird because they shocked themselves to get an untapped land here, which seems weird.
They need to keep up red for strong arm, I guess.
Yeah, but strong arm isn't exactly a reactive card on your turn.
Maybe they just want to punch through this charm parrot in case Espithel blocks.
So Pine is a really nice draw for Espithel. It kind of turns on this title spite as well as this tail being basically straight up lethal.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. So that's title spite for 3 now.
Yeah.
You can even
you can
just swing out here.
One of the cards that Augur drew was Crossing the Fog, which would have been really nice to play pre-combat.
Well, they wouldn't have drawn into it if they didn't scribe with the Night Academics.
Did they actually bottom twice?
I don't know.
They bottom once.
Okay. Well, they just wanted to make sure they're actually drawing into good cards, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But now you don't know what's on top, so you could draw a bad card.
Ah, yes. It all balances out.
But with these 2 draws from Espithel, it seems like they're kind of in a dominating position right now.
Yeah.
Since this title spike will bounce Augur's entire board state, and nothing Augur has in hand deals with what Espithel is presenting, and that will be 6 damage next turn and 6 on the following, which will be lethal before. Actually, I guess this Prowess deck might actually be able to just redeploy everything and just kill on the next turn if Espithel doesn't draw anything here.
I guess you play Crossing the Fog first? No, they're going to consult first.
That's odd. Not sure how I feel about that, playing consult there. I guess they're looking for just burn spells.
I guess.
Try and kill this Rikai. Augur doesn't have any counter spells in sideboard.
Maybe Augur just figured that they're not going to play around Title Spike because they can't.
So Scorch is a nice draw.
Yeah. Okay, now there's Crossing the Fog.
So Scorch on the Rikai does mean that does really hurt Espithel's clock. This Owl and Panya should make up for it unless Augur draws good cards here.
You interact with Countess, it's off the journey. Too bad Augur's not getting any of it.
Yeah. I think Augur will actually need to shock themselves here, which is especially awkward.
Well, at least they get the scry triggers, so... Wait, but they have a fetch land lined up. Yeah, probably should have fetched before combat.
Yeah, well, they don't know that they need to fetch before combat. Bottoms twice, so...
Well, they know that they have scries lined up, and they know that these guys shuffle, so I feel like they should know to fetch before combat so they can make use of their scries, right?
Yeah, maybe. Though, honestly, this is kind of a bit on the back of Espithel messing out, because I think they probably should have just total spited 3 attacks.
Yeah, I guess.
Because I don't think there's any way that you're like... I guess you wait until the last moment, see if Augur does anything, and then bounce it.
Yeah, you want to build them out with strong arm. So you're gonna. Yeah. So you should try to block with Lord Rikai on something and see if your opponent tries to strong arm, and then before damage.
Strong arm's also just lethal here.
Yeah, so like make your opponent use the strong arm so you can visit it with the title spite.
So I guess in that aspect, it's a smart play.
I think Espithel is trying to do some mind gaming here.
Yeah, well, it's Augur to decide whether they want to do anything or not. So
it seems like Espithel isn't going to try to visit the strong arm. They're just going to go for a title spike for 3.
Yeah, so I think that's just kind of an error. But that'll end up mattering here, maybe, because Espithel is just in such a dominating position after that title spike.
Yeah, a fair and balanced card.
Yeah. This also does kind of highlight how important being on the play is. With Augur had another turn to redeploy everything, I think they have lethal on the next turn. At least threaten lethal.
Yeah.
And would force some jump blocks.
So can Augur afford to shock themselves right now for their lands?
Well, I feel like it's just kind of free because you kind of need to kill this Lord Rikai.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just have to play another creature and hope that nothing bad happens. And hope that you kill on the next turn.
Does Tau count as something bad for Augur?
I think they have mana to deal with it. So if Espithel swings all out here, then this Magnetic Tonic will be turned off.
Right.
So I think Augur needs some pretty specific draws here, including probably Consult.
It's a sorcery. They need to top deck Fire Burst to get rid of the Tau.
You need to kill the Tau, anyways. And I don't believe that's the draw that they... Actually, let's see.
Is an instinct.
So I was thinking you Scorch the Tau, but now you don't actually need to, since you can give both your attackers trample.
Yeah.
I think the only line here is whether Scorch face, attack, strong arm is lethal.
Is it lethal?
I don't know. I'm not going to calculate it. We'll see, because this is the only thing that can happen. I think it's actually exactly lethal. Oh no, it's one off.
Espithel's blocking here, right? Like, they can't afford not to block here, even if they're only jumping for 1 damage.
Yeah, I think it ends up being one off, since you get both attackers to 6 power. So unless if Espithel decides to not block one, which they smartly decide to not do, this will be a close game, but Augur will not end up getting there.
Oof. Then you have 2 mana left over if they want to do anything with that.
Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate that they didn't hit anything relevant off the Frost and the Fog, because if any of these cards were a burn spell, then they could have gotten there. Or even if it was like a consult or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh hell, even as land? Oh, Flame Waker ability. Never mind, that's lethal.
Wait, is it lethal?
Yeah, exactly. It's Xaxes.
Holy crap.
Wow, I missed that Flame Waker ability.
Yeah, I didn't
Nice
even.
catch.
I guess that's why you run Morgantha's Flamewalker.
But yeah, I mean, Strong Arm is a good card. Granted, so is Tidal Spite, because Tidal Spite's the only way we got into that situation.
Could Espithel have played better that game to prevent this?
I don't think so. I mean, everything we saw there was pretty natural.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like some reverse engineering where you can block the Night Academic. No, the Night Academic was only swinging for 1, right? 1 turn 2.
Yeah.
But even, I guess, just keeping back an additional blocker would have saved Espithel, because there's no need to attack with everything here.
Right.
But yeah, I think this is is maybe a good illustration matchup where game 1 Espithel couldn't deal with any of Augur's creatures and just died. Where Augur being in the play definitely helped them.
Yeah.
And game 2, same story. Tidal Spite almost bailed them out, but even with like fairly minimal resources, Augur did manage to put the game away.
Actually,
barely.
maybe Espithel could have like Tidal Spited slightly later so that you fizzled Augur's first strong arm so that they don't have 2 strong arms in hand.
Yeah, so if Augur decides to not play around strong arm, Espithel would have won pretty cleanly there. I have to imagine that Augur would play around strong arm.
You mean Tidal Spite? Yeah.
Well, that would be correct too, at least. Because you know that Espithel boards up to 4 post board, first of all. And on top of that, if the opponent doesn't have a Tidal Spite, you probably win anyways, since you get all these Enrapture counters and whatnot from the journey, as well as you just like have a good board. You're just winning the race.
Right.
I think. Though Espithel not giving the chance for Augur to mess up even, and like jumping the gun to respond to play their spells before Augur could do anything, definitely gives less room for your opponent to mess up, which is not ideal. But
yeah. Well, either ways, that was the quarterfinals game, so it seems like Augur's going to move on.